Hey friends, welcome back. Here we're looking at pranayama added into restorative classes. So I want to let you know that this is very similar to meditation. So here's kind of how I run a 90-minute restorative, whether it's 60 minutes or less, that too, or even 2 hours. What I really focus on is having a meditation, a pranayama, and then the posture is set up, and I will continue to move that through. Okay. So some of the regular breaths. Okay, so let's talk about pranayama and let's talk about kriyas first and foremost, so that you know there's a difference. If you're into it, there's a meditation teacher training on my website that you can also take that's meditation and pranayama. And we dive deeper into the different types of pranayama. Here is just like a little overview. And what we do is talk about the fact that pranayama, as defined in the sutras, clearly states that a pranayama is when there is a pause either between the inhale and the exhale or the exhale and the inhale. It talks about an extended breath. So what we can deduce is that pranayama is really only a slow breath. Anything like Kapalabhati or Bhastrika, anything like that is a kriya because it's fast paced and it's all about detoxification, and it has a different purpose. So it's often taught as pranayama, but it's not pranayama. So here we would never teach anything like that in a restorative class. All right, we're going to teach the pranayamas, and we're doing anything that's a little bit slower. As you learned in the nervous system lecture, the vagus nerve comes through a hole in the diaphragm. Now, the vagus nerve is the nerve that's most responsible for the parasympathetic response. It's really depending on how healthy and toned this nerve is how quick you recover from fight or flight. So this vagus nerve comes through a hole in the diaphragm. And when we do any type of diaphragmatic breathing, it's literally like massaging the vagus nerve. Now, what this does is it almost like turns on the vagus nerve, which means that it is like strengthening the vagus nerve, which means that the body is much quicker to respond to a parasympathetic response. So it's much quicker to come out of fight or flight when that nerve is healthy, and diaphragmatic breathing helps to keep the nerve healthy. So the first thing that we're looking at is full yogic breath. You can call it Durga breath, 3-part breath. We can look at this as Ujjayi. Basically, the most foundational breath in yoga, period, is Ujjayi. And even further, like before that, is 3-part breath. So 3-part breath is the foundation of all the other pranayams. When you're doing Nadi Sadhana, you want to be doing 3-part or Durga breath. When you're doing Ujjayi, you want to be doing 3-part or Durga breath. When you're doing square breath, when you're doing any of the breaths, you really want to have this 3-part full-on breath that you can have. So why? Because it calms the body, it supports the digestive system, it massages the abdominal organs, it massages the lymph system, so your immune system. It opens and supports the rib cage and sternum to open. It supports the respiratory system, and it lowers the blood pressure. So when we look at the idea of prana, right, we're really looking at the science of what prana is. And prana is translated a lot as breath, but prana really means life force. So prana is life force. It's what keeps us alive. It's not our soul, which can be mistranslated, I think, sometimes, right? It's not that part of us that is that is the witness, the awareness within us. It's our life force. And so when we look at that, there's a couple things, right? There's a rule of threes. So if we don't breathe for 3 minutes, we die. What has to do with breath? So the reason that it gets kind of translated to that is because if we don't breathe, then our life force isn't going. This is what they deduced 10,000 years ago. You're not breathing, you're not alive. You're not breathing, you have no life force. When we look at modern day science, what does that mean? That means if we don't breathe, we're not bringing in a very important nutrient, oxygen, which is the fuel for our body. Food is not our fuel. Food we can go without for 3 weeks. So our fuel is oxygen. Okay, so that's part of our life force. If we don't have oxygen in our body, we die. Okay, if we look at, now remember, this is before microscopes. This is before an understanding of Western knowledge. This is them explaining what we need to stay alive, our life force, our prana, and we get prana from the air that we breathe. So we got 3 minutes without our breath, we can't breathe. 3 minutes without, or 3 days without water, we can't live. So we know that some of our prana comes from water, actually like second most from water. Without 3 weeks of eating, we die. Now, give or take some of these days, you could be less, you could be more, not for sake of arguing, this is just for sake of ease. So 3 weeks, no food. So now we know we have nutrients from food that are also our prana. And then finally, the one that this yogis speak of the most is the sun, right? Without the sun, I don't know how long we could go, let's say 3 years, 3 months, I don't know. But we know that if you aren't in the sun, that, I mean, there's tests in geriatric, like residential homes, where they did these tests with high doses of vitamin C to see if they could increase or if they could decrease depression in older adults, and they were successful. Nothing changed except to increase doses of vitamin D. So vitamin D is essential to absorbing calcium, bone building, like so many processes within our body. So there you have it. There's prana. Prana is a way that 10,000 years ago, they explained what we have a scientific like explanation for. So full yogic breath really helps to support our most important asset, our breath. If you're not breathing fully, you're not breathing into all parts of your lungs. And the lungs are interesting because if you don't breathe into all parts, you have 3 parts in your right lung, 2 parts in your left lung. If you're not breathing into all parts of your lungs, then actually those parts of the lungs stop working. And the interesting thing in the medical field is if what you don't use, you lose, and there's no getting it back. So they even have terms for it. When you no longer breathe into the bases of your lungs, then this area becomes known as dead space. So there's no air movement. And what happens in warm, dark, and moist spots? Proliferation of bacteria. So if you've ever known an older adult that gets repeated pneumonia infections, this is why, because they literally aren't using their lungs. And so it's very important that you do, so that this doesn't happen to you when you're older. The breath is so important. And so when we're looking at it in these different ways, it calms the body because it stimulates the vagus nerve. It supports the digestive system because the vagus nerve is directly linked to the lungs, the heart, the gut, and the lymph system. So when we are breathing that way, it also massages the abdominal organs, which the vagus nerve is also innervated too. It opens and supports the rib cage and the sternum. So I want you to just sit like this for a minute, okay? Like most people, round your shoulders, go down, and now take a really deep breath. Okay, now I want you to lift your chest, bring your shoulders back, and take that same deep breath. Which one are you going to be healthier with in your life? Okay, it's really important that you're breathing deep whenever you possibly can, because breathing is the most important thing that you can do. You do it 24/7 without being aware of it. So also this is how it supports the respiratory system, and in conjunction with all of the things I was talking about, the vagus nerve, the connection to the heart, all of that, it lowers your blood pressure. Ujjayi breath is the base breath for everything. All right. It's very diaphragmatic. It calms the mind, balances the nervous system, reduces stress, and strengthens the nervous system in the same way that I was talking about. Interestingly enough, Ujjayi breath is the base breath for all of the practices of yoga. So let's just talk about 4 main types of asana practice. We've got vinyasa. Okay. Ujjayi is the base breath for vinyasa. In vinyasa practice, we're not supposed to lose our breath. That's how we know we have cardiovascular health. Vinyasa practice is for cardiovascular health. When we look at the history of yoga, vinyasa was born of Ashtanga. And Ashtanga was never a quick moving, fast paced class. It was more like a hatha class in which it was taught in a certain way. People got bored of doing the same thing over and over again because really Ashtanga was meant for children. And what they did was created vinyasa so that there was different movements. It was never what it is now. It was never this aerobic workout that people do, because on top of it, it damages the body because we're using momentum instead of muscular engagement, but that's a whole nother conversation. In hatha, we practice hatha for our physical strength. And Ujjayi breath not only helps us to keep our breath, but it helps us to find the strength to stay in the poses longer. Okay, Ujjayi breath is the base breath for yin because it helps us to stay within the parasympathetic response, and it helps to keep the muscles from actively engaging, taking the stretch back to the elastic tissues. So Ujjayi is really important to help us get the full benefit of a yin practice by keeping the nervous system, let's just say, disengaged. Ujjayi breath is also the base breath for restorative because Ujjayi is very calming. It's known as victorious breath, and it's also known as ocean breath. So hearing yourself like the waves of the ocean is very calming for the mind. And it's also, again, diaphragmatic. So it's really supporting with strengthening the nervous system, balancing, reducing stress, and calming the mind. Ujjayi, most important breath you can know. So please, if you're teaching people like Ujjayi and then that's it, like, don't do that. Spend the time to teach people how to do it. So if we look at these breaths, just so that I can teach you how to do them too, we've got full yogic breath just to go back a notch, because I'm like, wait, I didn't teach you that one. I'm just assuming you know, and I always say, don't do that as a teacher. So I'm just calling myself out right now, and let's look at full yogic breath. I really love to bring it together with conscious breath, abdominal breathing, and then 3-part. And so to do that really quickly for you, I want you to close your eyes and roll your shoulders down your spine and start to become aware of your breath. Don't try to change it, just notice it. Notice where the breath comes in and out, if it's your nose or your mouth. And if it's your nose, notice where the air passes by. Is it like the outer nostrils or is it the septum? Does the air feel cool or warm? Notice as the breath goes up the nostrils into the back of the throat. And then notice as it comes from the back of the throat out the nostrils. Again, don't try to change it, just be with your breath. And now start to shift, bringing attention to your belly. And when you inhale, fill up the belly like it's a balloon. When you exhale, pull the belly button back towards the spine, release all of the air from your lungs, and continue like this for a few breaths. Inhale, fill up your belly as full as you possibly can, push it out as much as you can. And then when you exhale, pull the belly button in and force the air out when it comes to the last little bit of your breath. Continue to inhale and fill up your belly. And exhale, release from the lungs, pull the belly button in towards the spine. Keep doing this. You know, we are taught to suck in our guts, but when we suck in our guts, we can't take a deep breath. So don't worry about what it looks like. Really fill your belly with as much air as you possibly can. And then when you release, that's your opportunity for a hard belly. This time on your inhale, I want you to fill the belly and save a little bit of breath for the ribs. Bring the breath up into the ribs. Feel the ribs expand away from one another. Exhale, ribs come back towards one another, belly in towards the spine. Let's do that one more time. Inhale, fill up your belly. Fill up your ribs. Exhale from your ribs and from your belly. This last time, I want you to inhale to the belly and the ribs. Exhale from the ribs and the belly. We'll move it up one more space. Inhale, fill up your belly. Move some of the air up into the ribs. Feel the ribs expand away from one another. And then bring some up into the chest. Feel the collarbones come up towards the ceiling. Exhale, come back to collarbones down, ribs in, belly in towards the spine. Try that again. Inhale, fill up your belly. Fill up your ribs. Fill up your chest. Exhale from the chest, from the ribs, and from the belly one more time. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest. Exhale, chest, ribs, belly. Come on back. Notice now how the breath has changed, how the breath is naturally longer. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Now, if we look at Ujjayi breath, how to explain Ujjayi, we want that 3-part breath as a base. So you can start by teaching it that way and then say, bring your hand in front of your mouth and imagine that your hand is like glass, and I want you to open your mouth and blow on the glass like you're fogging it up. And just keep doing that. And as you blow out onto your glass, I want you to connect to the feeling in the throat, that slight restriction that makes it so breathing out is a little bit slower. And then I want you to keep that restriction and breathe in. Keep doing that. It's like Luke, I am your father. Darth Vader breath. Now, keep the restriction in the throat. Close your mouth. So notice that the breath is still audible, but less audible to everybody else and more audible to yourself. And as you continue with the restriction in your throat, fill up your belly, fill up your ribs, fill up your chest. Exhale from the chest, from the ribs, from the belly. Ujjayi breath. When you are ready, feel free to open your eyes and come on back. So as I mentioned, I will continue I take time to set it up in the beginning, and then I'll say, remember your Ujjayi breath. Where are you with your breath? Come back to your breath. Come back to your Ujjayi breath. Nadi Shodhana. Nadi Shodhana is yet another. Okay, remember, we've got this 3-part Durga breath as a base. So everything is going to be massaging the vagus nerve. Okay, so what does that do? It lowers the heart rate, it reduces stress and anxiety, it balances the left and the right side of the brain, and it's said to cultivate clear thinking. So Nadi Shodhana is alternate nostril breathing. Okay, and it's a very balancing breath as well. So what I do when it comes to Nadi Shodhana and restorative is I don't necessarily do it with the hands. I do mental Nadi Shodhana or mental alternate nostril breathing. So close your eyes and then take a deep breath in. Let it out. And then inhale one more time, fill up your lungs. And when you exhale, exhale only from the left nostril. When you inhale, inhale from the right. Exhale from the right. Inhale from the left. Exhale from the left. Inhale from the right. Exhale from the right. Inhale from the left. Remember, we have the 3-part or Durga breath as the base breath. Exhale from that same nostril. Continue at your own pace, switching the nostril with the inhale or at the end of the exhale. And continue at your own pace until you exhale through the left nostril and then come back to your conscious breath. Another one that we have, feel free to open up your eyes whenever you're ready. Another one that we have is square breath, right? That is inhale to a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale to a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, inhale 4, and then you can increase or decrease. You just want to make sure that it's a square, that all 4 parts of the breath are equal. And the more that one practices it, the longer they can extend all 4 parts of the breath. Know that the inhale and exhale are not created equal. The exhale is always longer than the inhale. So it takes some energy to find that space of all 4 of the breaths or parts of the breath. So linking breath with thoughts, this technique to support people in going deeper and creating a more relaxing space. So you can start to, just like a meditation, affirmations, whatever that looks like breathe in loving kindness, breathe out loving kindness, fill up the room to all of your peers, breathe in relaxation and healing, breathe out disease, dis-ease and distress. Breathe in what you want to cultivate, breathe out what you no longer serves you. Breathe in presence, breathe out judgment. When we breathe consciously, our minds open and our bodies soften. Lovely. One of the things that I really love to do is a white light, dark smoke meditation. And I think that that's really helpful for the restorative, because you can put that all the way through and you're linking the breath and the meditation together. So you're inhaling white light, which is healing, warmth, all that you want to cultivate. And you're exhaling dark smoke, which is all the negativity and anything that you're ready to let go of. So you can link breath with thoughts, and that's literally linking pranayama, meditation, and your restorative practice. So I think that this is a pretty good I'm hoping that I got my point across about how to sequence, how to bring meditation in, and how to bring breath in, because that tends to be a lot of how I teach. The theme is basically this thing over and over again, weaved throughout, and I hope that that becomes clear to you. And I can't wait to see what it is that you create for your class. All right, everyone, thanks for listening.